Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you. You're watching a brand new episode of Encounter. Today, our guest is Enolia Foti, who is a shaman, and she is very well versed in shamanic practices. She's also known as an earth keeper and also a modern day medicine woman. Enolia, very warm welcome to you, and thank you for being present here in the studio of the MBC.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here, and I feel so honored to be here with you.
And for our viewers, just so that you know that Enolia is from the US, but now you're based in Angola. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. So I have many questions for you because we will be speaking mainly about shamanic practices and who is a shaman. So probably the first question, you're a shaman.
Yes.
Who is a shaman?
So, shamanism is a way of life. It is the way I've chosen to lead my life in balance with the earth, the air, the fire, the water, just in balance. And so, when I think of shamanism, I think of certain foundational pieces of knowledge, which is that I believe that all things have energy, everything has energy, that we have to have respect for everything that we encounter, that we take, that we utilize, and that we share. And that it is my job and my purpose to live in this life in harmony with the earth and not as if it's a possession or something that's due me or I'm entitled to. So it is the practicing every day. It is the consciously walking through this world every day as I dare to live my life here on this earth.
So you mentioned earlier that you take into consideration earth, water, the elements.
Yes.
The main elements, as we call it.
Yes.
Is it something that you learned from elders? Have you been initiated? How do you become a shaman?
Wow, so that's a loaded question. So, but I will share this with you. There are many types of shamanism.
All right.
And first of all, it's what you're drawn to. Some people are only drawn to fire. Some people are only drawn to air. Some people are only drawn to earth. Some only to water, and some all. I'm probably one of those anomalies. I enjoy all of the elements. And when I say that, there are shamans who are drawn to fire, and you'll do a fire walk, and that's how you clear. That's their medicine. That's the extension of what they work with.
What is a fire walk?
A fire walk is where you literally have coals, you have coals of wood on fire, and you literally barefoot walk across them. So it's a beautiful experience, and it really allows you to overcome the challenge of fear.
Definitely.
Yes.
Different shamans have different elements and they do different things.
They do
So you
different
mentioned
things.
for fire.
It's just different relationships. So that was a relationship with fire. You can have a relationship with water. But you don't have to be a shaman in order to have these relationships. It's just that we've taken it into consideration as an extension of us. We've taken it into a deep state of appreciation, honoring, and relationship with that element or with the elements. So
Okay.
what happens is that when you have groups of people, there may be that one or two that just understand it a little bit more than the others.
Of course.
But if you think about it, when you are in nature and then, you just have a knowing. You have a knowing to go right instead of left. You have a knowing to select this plant and not that plant. Where does that knowing come from? Where does that understanding come from? So as we spend time in nature and we developed relationships with nature and appreciated what those relationships were, we understand that we're all energy. And so if I sing to my plants, we understand that the plants respond.
Of course. It's a transmission of vibrations.
Exactly. And, a lot of things are scientifically proven now. Like literally they have a device now you can put on a plant and you can actually hear the vibration that the plant is toned at right now.
Yes.
So our ancestors really took the time to develop that relationship, to focus it and to tune in. So how do we get the medicines that we have that we actually take over the counter that pharmaceuticals tack on the chemicals to? Well, Our ancestors took the time to understand that when I use lavender, that's antiseptic, antibiotic, and that it really, I can place it on a wound and it works, it heals, and the infection doesn't set in. They understood that with the plants. So the plants actually inform them, they inform the plants. There's a symbiotic relationship and understanding between that which is energy to that which is energy.
So why is it that many people think that shamanism is kind of a voodoo?
Well, let's talk about dark and light, right? We are human beings, and what is our goal? Our goal is to stay centered.
Yes.
Centered, right? What does that mean? We have a side that can be very angry, negative, whatever the case may be, and we have a side that's bliss, right? So which side do you choose each day?
Choose the side that probably takes you to the right place where you need to be.
Right.
Yes.
The bliss and whatnot, but there are times that you need to work with anger to accomplish getting through a challenge or whatever the case may be. But the key is what our goal is to stay centered. But then you have people who want to be all the way to the left, and you have people who want to be all the way to the right. And really our goal is be centered.
Okay.
Walk the path, walk right in the middle, and then that way, because we need darkness. We sleep in dark. We rest in dark. That's where we rejuvenate.
Exactly.
That's where our body shuts down, right? But we need light. That's where we're energetic. We need both. But what do? We have the yin, the yang. We need to be centered. We need to appreciate both. But when someone's all the way to the right or all the way to the left, sometimes that balance is necessary.
Can we put a date to how old are shamanic practices? Or where did
Oh,
and
my
also
goodness.
where did they origin from? Is it from America?
Oh, no, 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 no. Every indigenous culture has probably had a shamanic leader
Okay.
or a medicine woman or a medicine man that has just been recognized of being gifted. And being gifts, we all have gifts, but being gifted such that they just have an intuition and a knowing of what to do. And that goes hundreds of thousands of years. Hundreds of thousands of years.
How we react to nature? Is it how you probably start learning about?
Well, I would say that we know way before and even just the body knows physically, the body knows etherically, right? Let's say you encounter someone and they step into your personal space and the hairs in the back of your neck raise up and you're like, move back.
Yes, or you have butterflies in your stomach.
Exactly. Well, we all have a light body field.
Sure.
All right. And that light body field would be akin to a torus or let's say a donut. So, which is a torus. Okay. And that torus is around us and that torus can expand and that torus can contract. And so when my torus intersects with your torus, if you invited in your torus, hi, Enolia, you give me a hug, you shake my hand, you're inviting that in. But if you look at me and you're like, no, that doesn't feel right, and I come into your space, you're like, hey, can you move back?
Yes.
Can you give me some space, please? You're in my field.
Yes.
So that field is our first,
Sensor.
sensor.
Yes.
Thank you. Our first sensor. And we all have it. And when we are in nature, that sensor expands fully. We can span hundreds of feet. Have you
can imagine.
ever seen somebody walk into a room, and then when they walk into a room, you look up and you're like, ooh, who's that?
I
could
that
feel
person.
that. I
Yeah.
like that
I
person.
like that vibe.
And that is the fact that their light body has
Yes.
expanded for hundreds of feet such that when they walk through the room, you encounter and you know who they are. You feel them.
You can feel the energy is very refined.
Exactly.
Well, most of the time. Most of the time.
Exactly.
Enolia, we can keep on speaking, but I want to also to ask you your journey. How did you become a shaman? Because you told me that you come from a corporate background.
Yes, I do.
Yes, you do. So before we get into that, I will invite you and I will invite the viewers of Encounter to watch the following report. Don't go away. We'll be back. Evidence of shamanic practices have been found in Scandinavia, Siberia, and other parts of Europe, as well as Mongolia, Korea, Japan, China, and Australia. Inuit and First Nations tribes of North America utilized shamanic spirituality, as did groups in South America, Mesoamerica, and Africa. In other words, it's been found throughout most of the known world. For early shamans, beliefs and practices formed as a response to the basic human need to find an explanation and exert some control over natural occurrences. For instance, a hunter-gatherer society might make offerings to spirits that influenced the size of the herds or the bounty of the forests. Later, pastoral societies might rely upon the gods and goddesses who controlled the weather so that they would have plentiful crops and healthy livestock. The community then came to depend on the work of the shaman for their well-being. One of the key beliefs found in shamanic practice is that ultimately everything and everyone is interconnected. From plants and trees to rocks and animals and caves, all things are part of a collective whole. In addition, everything is imbued with its own spirit or soul and can be connected to on the non-physical plane. The patterned thinking allows the shaman to journey between the worlds of our reality and the realm of other beings, serving as a connector. In addition, because of their ability to travel between our world and that of the greater spiritual universe, a shaman is typically someone who shares prophecies or oracular messages with those who may need to hear them. These messages may be something simple and individually focused, but more often than not, they are things that will impact an entire community. In some cultures, a shaman is consulted for their insight and guidance before any major decision is made by the elders. A shaman will often utilize trance-inducing techniques to receive these visions and messages. Finally, shamans often serve as healers. They can repair ailments in the physical body by healing imbalances or damages to the person's spirit. This may be done by way of simple prayers or elaborate rituals involving dance and song. Because illness is believed to come from malevolent spirits, the shaman will work to drive the negative entities out of the person's body and protect the individual from further harm. Welcome back. You're still watching Encounter, and Enolia is still with us in the studio. Before the break, I had asked you that we're curious to know how you become a shaman, but most importantly, tell us what you were doing before you became a shaman.
Oh my goodness. So I am your typical person growing up and going to school. I grew up in Queens, New York, in Bayside, and I attended University of Massachusetts, got my degree in mathematics, and then got married probably 2 months after I graduated from school. I have two beautiful boys, Nicholas and Joseph, Nico and Joseph, who are like 26 and 28 now. And while the children were probably in middle school, I got my master's, and I was working for a Fortune 500 company, and I design computer networks for a living.
Oh, wow.
So I'm the total right brain, geek of the science and math and everything else. And I have this balance of artwork and the arts and dancing and everything else like that because my sister went to Juilliard, so the arts was in the house, the science was in the house. But halfway through my corporate career, and I worked for Corning for 20 years, I'd say halfway through, I had this longing in my heart. I had this longing of wanting to know where I came from. And in order to understand this, you need to know that my parents had me very late in life. My mother had me at 48 years old. My father at 50. Yes. So my mother
48 years old.
48 years
Wow,
old.
very impressive.
I was a big surprise. And so when they passed away so early, I had this longing in my heart of wanting to know where I came from. And so I knew that I had Native American lineage, Cherokee actually, and I have African lineage.
Okay.
And so I wanted to embark and understand this, and there was no way to really get the African lineage, so I went after the Native American lineage. And so I want to say that that started it, but really it was a journey with a group of women from work, outside of work, that just basically we wanted to get away for a wives' weekend, and we went to a bed and breakfast in Angelica, New York. And we were going to see a medium, and it was just like, okay, I don't know what that is because I'm not on this journey yet. And so we're hanging out the weekend. We're about to sit down. The medium is supposed to perform that evening. So a bunch of us were on the staircase. We wanted to take a picture. And I asked this woman, will you, take a picture of the group for us, So she takes a picture. And then as we progress through the night, we're supposed to have dinner and everything. She's staring at me. this woman that I asked to take a picture is staring at me and staring at me. And I'm like, why is this woman staring at me?
That's
So
quite uncomfortable, people staring.
oh my goodness.
I mean, once,
mean,
twice, but a few times that's
never
in your
even turning
face.
her head.
Yes.
She
Yes.
didn't even turn her head. I'd look at her back, and she's looking at me, and I turn away, thinking that she'd finally just turn away. And I look back, and she's still staring at me. And I even so much I asked my friend Jenny, "Hey, do you see this woman staring at me?" And she's like, "Yeah, I don't know what's going on." So we knew the owner of the bed and breakfast who introduces the medium for the evening's performance or whatever it's supposed to be, because I didn't know what it was. And it was the same woman.
She's a shaman?
Well, she's a medium.
Medium, okay.
And a medium just means that she channels information. She sees the other side and she channels information. So she starts introducing herself, and I'm like, does she realize that she's introducing herself? She's still staring at me. Like, there's 30 people in the room and she's looking at me. And so she finally goes and says, "You know what? I have to pause. I am so sorry. I have been staring at you all evening, but I have to tell you, you have an entourage around you. Your mother, your family members, they're all around you, and they will not allow me to take my eyes off of you. They have messages for you. I'm working with you first." I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't expecting anything.
You didn't ask anything.
I didn't ask anything. And so what her working with me first meant that she stood behind me. She put her hands on my shoulders.
So what she meant is people were around, your entourage was present energetically.
Energetically.
Okay. Okay.
My ancestors energetically.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Of whom I'm going like,
Do you believe in such things that?
at the time, I just didn't know.
So you let her do
I-
whatever she had to do and say, you know what, let's experience it and see what happens.
Well, I figured I'd know in the message, right? Because we'd either get confirmation. She said things to me no one would know.
Oh, right. All right. So,
No one would know. And so as she tells me this message, I'm
Okay.
to keep my singing, okay? I'm to keep my music. I'm going to be giving messages to people that it's going to touch their heart, and that I'm not open enough. I need to get more open.
Okay.
I need to figure out how I'm going to be more open. What does that mean, get more open? So now I have this message. It's from my mother. She said my mother's sisters. That was it, because my mother had like 6 sisters and only 3 brothers, only one of which I knew, because she had me late in life. And so I was like, she had said things that totally confirmed.
Okay.
And so here I was on a mission.
So the medium was total stranger. It doesn't.
Total stranger, never knew her from anywhere.
And she's giving you inside
And
information.
she's giving me inside information.
Okay, that must have blown your mind.
It blew my mind. That was the moment. That was the moment that initiated me going on a path. And I had no idea what that path was going to be. So it first started with, I'm going to figure out what getting more open means. And I started going on this. I'm an academic, right? I'm books.
So you started reading.
I started reading. You are psychic. What does that mean? Spirit guide. What does that mean? You have an aura. What does that mean? What are these things called chakras? What? I'm eating it up. And I'm reading. I'm not just reading
It's
one
making
book.
sense.
I'm reading 4 and 5 books at a time. I mean, all of a sudden, voraciously, it just like kicks in.
Okay.
But it is making sense.
Okay.
And so I'm going to finish that story. I saw her a year later, and she actually saw me in my town instead of Angelica, New York. I was going to a craft show, and somebody knocks on my window, and it was her, and we ended up having coffee, and I told her how she changed my life, that I'm reading voraciously now. Now I'm embarking on understanding what this whole spiritual thing is, because I didn't know. And, how she changed my life, and she was just warmed. And so I didn't see her again until the next year, when I knew that craft show was coming. I was going to invite her to my home and just say, hey, go to the craft show from here. We could chit chat and talk. And when I called her, she had passed away.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
And it blew me away, because what it made me realize, what they shared, what Source, God, shared with me, was that she was half in the spirit world and half in our world, already because of her health situation.
Okay.
And it validated it more for me.
Okay. Wow.
And so that was like the messenger that said, wake up,
Wow,
wake up.
it sounds all ethereal, but still yet very believable.
Yes.
So, but from there, when you started reading, we recently had an encounter when they say that when you're ready, the master appears. So I'm guessing you started meeting people then.
I wanted to have an elder teach me. I longed to have an elder teach me. I needed somebody to teach me. Reading was nice, but reading wasn't satisfying. Reading wasn't the experience.
No.
And so my family sent me to the 13 Indigenous Grandmothers Council. And this is, if you're not familiar with them, they are 13 women who got together from all over the world. They are medicine women. And they had a prophecy that they were fulfilling in coming together. So they were from Nepal, Tibet, all over the US, from the Amazon, Brazil, from Africa. It was 13 of them. They all came together. And their message was, it's time to start allowing some of the indigenous knowledge out to the public. It is time now to wake everyone up.
Definitely, that makes sense.
Yes. And so when they were together, they recognized this other medicine woman. Her name was Grandmother Isabel Miwasaki. And when they recognized her, not as one of them, but just an extension of, working with them and acknowledgement, I saw this woman holding this serpent staff, beautiful gray hair, in her regalia, which is her native traditional clothing of deerskins. And I'm like, I'm going to meet that woman. That was it. That was the woman I wanted to meet. That was the woman I was going to find the courage to approach to say, will you teach me?
And she did?
When I approached her, she was thoughtful and she was like, I was like, would you teach me? And I didn't know what to ask. Teach what? Like, what is she going to teach me? So I was like, will you teach me herbalism? Or, I came up with anything. And she looks at me and she goes, okay, my girl, if you're really serious, here's my card. Come up and see me sometimes. And, even though she was in northern Canada, I was living in northern New York, upstate New York. And I was about a 22-hour drive from her. 2 months later, I took that 22-hour drive. I stayed with her for the weekend. She was like, if you're really serious, come on a retreat. I hold them in the spring and bring some people. And in holding that retreat, I'll teach you.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I brought 22 women the following summer. 22. There was no reason for her not to have that retreat.
Okay. So you made it work. So now I have to ask you, what is it to live a shamanic life?
Some of the principles: no judgment,
Okay.
no attachment. From my grandmother Isabel, that summer that that retreat and that 10 days that I was with before her, ask permission. You ask permission of the earth. We take without asking. We feel like we're entitled to it, and we're not entitled to anything. That plant understands that it's giving its life in order for you to have assistance or help. Ask that plant before you just take it.
Okay.
Ask that grandfather tree. Understand that the stones have energy. Talk to the stone people.
That makes
There
sense.
is a symbiotic relationship with every single thing. You have a relationship to your chessboard.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everything has a vibrational frequency.
Yes.
And it's how we tune and how we connect to it. We have unfortunately almost come to the end of this encounter, but I want to ask you before ending last words to people who do not know shamanic practices, or any message that you want to get out there, you want to share.
Yeah, I always say to people, dream a beautiful dream or you will be dreamt.
Okay.
Which means that if you don't hold a vision for yourself so that life can become a walk to that vision, then everyone who judges you and has those perceptions of you, you will be running around trying to fulfill their perceptions and judgments of you, and you will never be satisfied because it's not your truth. It is somebody else's truth.
Can anyone be a shaman? We all have it in ourselves.
Yes.
We do?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to try to read a little bit more now. Enolia, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom with us and all your experiences. It has been
Thank
a
you.
wonderful encounter. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of this episode of Encounter. If you have any queries, questions, on the topic that was discussed or on the guest, please drop an email. It's encounter@mbc.net.mu. Until the very next program, goodbye.